Hey, hello, and welcome to today's stream. We are starting a little bit later than usual, a little bit, because me and Willow just had a long ass fucking walk through the woods, through the woods. We were gone for like 1.5 hours. It was very nice. She had a lot of fun. She was running, sniffing, doing mischief, as in eating shit off the ground. Mostly leaves though, which is completely fine. So all good there. Hello, Wayne. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, so now she has done everything. She should be very eepy. Very good. She better eep, otherwise she should. So I have time to do a little bit of streaming, some reading. It is hard to stream nowadays when you have a tiny little puppy who takes 99% of your time. But it's fine because she's so fucking cute. So it's all good. Then later on, when she doesn't have to go out like every 3 hours, or when I'm not concerned that she will pee inside anymore, which she hasn't in a very long time, but still, then we can do some more streaming. perhaps, or maybe then she will be older and be more annoying and I have to do it. Anyway, for now, this is how we're going to do it. No one is complaining, so I don't have to defend anything. Yo, I'm just a bit overstimulated now after being out for so long. With her running around in the forest. So I kind of just came back as well. So now I also have to like calm down, take one extra breath, and just calm the fuck down with some reading that we all love. A sippy. A tiny little recap that I just wrote because I forgot that I had to make one. Okay. Last time on A Soldier's Life. Truth seekers everywhere. But now we don't have to care. Because some mystery man wrote runes wrote runes onto Eric's skeleton so that truth seekers can tell if he lies. We have to say goodbye to the company and Mavieth. I cry. We are now in Cinna's care until we will get shipped off to join the Hounds. Hello, Maki Egg. Did you get spoiled? Welcome, though. Oh, bitch ass. I hope you didn't get spoiled. I hope you're okay. I'm still behind one VOD and I have an exam in like an hour, so unfortunately I can't stay. Okay! Enjoy the VOD and good luck on the exam! Oh. Good luck. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it. Okay. And we will do it as in read 5 chapters. When I'm done itching my eye. Just itching. Okay. And yawn. Okay. There we go. Chapter 186. Mage Aspirants. With Senna gone, I was free to explore. I looked out her bedroom window and cleaned the glass. The view below was spectacular. A vast square courtyard with azure, pink, and yellow flowering trees. Trees! I was like, oh, flowers. Azure trees? Please give me. I want that so fucking bad. That would be so cool. Sprawling among pristine white paths. Men and women in robes walked the stone paths below, moving between the 4 towers at the corners. Looking closer at the paths, I noticed they reminded me of a spell form. An incomplete spell form, but maybe the paths extended beyond the walls. There was too little of the spell form for me to guess its purpose. Whatever its effect, it was an impressive and massive array. The mages below mostly wore black robes, who I assumed were the students. A few grey and white robes walked among them. With my height from the top of the tower, I could also see over the granite walls of the courtyard. The Mage College was nestled against the walls of the Imperial Palace. One gate led directly to the Imperial Palace grounds, but was guarded by 4 legionnaires in shiny plate armor with red highlights. Ugh, being a statue was in my future as well. I turned away from the window and started to walk the floor I was on. It was a massive suite encompassing the entire top floor of the large tower. 4 large bedrooms, each with its own small servant's room attached. The large sitting room with a door to the stairs, where I had met Antonia Segredo, had a formal dining room with seating for six. Oh, he wishes. With seating for 16 and an attached large kitchen. The larder was barren of everything but dust, and all the kitchen dishes, pots, and pans were also long neglected. Off the kitchen were 2 more small bedrooms, probably for the kitchen staff. A large formal bath with showers, a soaking tub, and a steam room was located in the center of the floor, amidst an array of larger perimeter rooms with windows. I tried the valve. I tried the valve on the central soaking tub, and air hissed out with a low rumble. After nearly a minute of hissing and sputtering, dark water exited the pipe, slowly changing to clear. I guess the plumbing of the tower was pressurized somehow with magic. The water was cold, and I didn't see any other valves. I could use a thermal stone to heat the soaking tub, once the recessed tub was clean. 2 more small alcove rooms appeared to have 2 toilets, one for the servants and one fancier marble one for the Chancellor and her guests. It was unsurprising that both needed cleaning. There were only 2 other rooms. A small library with only a handful of books on the history of Mage College, and an alchemy lab. The alchemy lab looked even more neglected than the rest of the rooms. Many of the flasks had hard-caked residue on the bottom, and a deep stone well in the center of the room had glass debris. If I were motivated, I might spend some time cleaning and setting up the apparatus to make the minty mouthwash, as it was the only recipe I currently knew. A thudding knock had me return to the entry room. I opened the door to the stairs to see 2 short mages in oversized black robes. A young blonde woman with pale blue eyes and a sandy-haired woman with green eyes. Their youthful faces told me they were likely mage aspirants. When I didn't say anything, the sandy-haired woman spoke meekly. "The Chancellor sent us to clean the quarters, Legionnaire." "What did you 2 to deserve this punishment?" I asked with a good-natured smile. The young woman lowered her eyes. "We were caught stealing from the kitchens last night." I guess the pair were both in their mid-teens by their youthful countenance, but it was so hard to tell, with most people in the Empire being shorter than I was accustomed to. "Well, what are your names? It is common courtesy to introduce yourselves. I am Legionnaire Eric." "Mage aspirant Flora," the blonde said, finding her tongue and bowing her head slightly. "Mage aspirant Livia," the sandy-haired one said, but was uncertain about bowing her head or a formal bow to the waist. She eventually chose the waist, showing me more respect. "Come in, Livia and Flora. Buckets are in the kitchen storeroom, and the water valve on the bathroom works." As I led the pair of mages through the suite, I didn't need to look at them to feel their pain as they realized the monumental task ahead of them. The rooms were large, and every one of them was filthy with years of neglect. The task would take the pair days to clean. 100% Eric is going to help them. "You can start with the bath, toilets, and kitchen," I told the pair once we had the buckets, aged brooms, and rags. "Do we have to clean in our robes?" Flora asked. I looked at her, caught off guard, my mind turning over the question. She flushed, realizing what she had said, and stuttered hastily. "It is just that we get disciplined if we attend class in dirty robes." "You can go get a change of clothes," I said, somewhat relieved at the clarification. What? What do you think they're gonna clean? These are kids. Please. "There is no need," Flora said, pulling off her robes to reveal that she had common clothes underneath. The bulky robes had hidden how thin she was. Livia followed Flora. Her robes also had a thin frame hidden underneath. Looking at them now, they appeared more like children than teens. They attacked the toilets first. Attacked. Their beige pants and off-white blouses quickly becoming filthy. As I watched them work, I asked, "Were you stealing food because you were hungry?" Oh, he's gonna give them food instead. When they first revealed it, I thought they might have done it for the thrill or on some bet. Livia paused in her scrubbing to answer, her face streaked with dirty sweat lines. Her words came out uncertain. "Legionnaire Eric, we frequently miss the meals due to our poor discipline." She was not seeking sympathy by her tone. She was stating a fact, maybe in fear I would administer more punishment if she complained. I leaned against the wall, getting the picture. "What other mischief have you been up to?" They looked at each other, unsure how to answer. I was starting to sense something else was going on here. I tried to put them at ease. "I will not relay anything you tell me to Cinna. I mean the Chancellor." Livia, who seemed to be the pair's leader, spoke for the pair with some modicum of trust in her eyes. "We frequently miss meals because we are blamed for things we did not do." My confused expression had her explain further. We are not the daughters of first citizens or noble houses. Flora is from a fishing village, and I am from the lower city. We were both assessed half a year ago by the magistrate during the annual tablet testing and found to have some potential. We now serve the Empire as mage aspirants. She bowed her head reflexively. I thought the two might know Renna. After letting them clean for a while, I asked after her. Do you know mage aspirant Renna? She was found recently with potential as well. They looked at each other, Livia speaking again for them. You mean mage Renna? She recently cast her first spell, maybe 2 months ago. She is no longer an aspirant. We did take classes with her until she moved on to the War College. Is she well then? I asked, thinking I might have a chance to see Renna again. She protected the weakest of us from the more serious harassment, but now that she is a true mage, she is in different classes, and we rarely see her, Flora added quickly. With a smirk sliding briefly on her face, she noted. She was the most powerful among the aspirants. She gave our tormentors twice what they gave us. She immediately covered her mouth, thinking she had revealed too much to me. It was a classic bullying scenario, with the wealthy and privileged preying on the weak. Keep working here. I will go prepare you something in the kitchen. They looked at each other, confused. We had just searched the kitchen for the buckets, and there was no food in the kitchen or pantry. I didn't explain and left them to work. The kitchen also had running water, and I cleaned a workspace before removing the thermal stone and some of my dungeon harvest. As it was not required for cooking, I removed my armor as it got in the way. Maybe it had taken all the seasonings, but I could still prepare the bacon and use the fat to fry slices of the purple potatoes into thick chips. It took me over 2 hours to clean and cook, and then I went and retrieved the 2 mages. Dinner is served, I announced proudly. The pair were beyond filthy, their pale skin and their faces and arms now coated in grime. Where did all this come from? Flora asked in disbelief, entering the kitchen. Magic, I said with a flourish of my hand, producing an apple and tossing it to her. Both her eyes were wide in amazement at my trick. It felt good to show off to someone who could appreciate it. She fumbled the apple but caught it eventually. Is this all for us? Livia asked of the 2 heaping plates. Yeah, I nibbled as I cooked. It is all yours. I waved at the counter and they started to sit on dirty stools. But perhaps clean up a bit first. They rushed into the bathroom and returned once their faces, arms, and hands had been scrubbed to some modicum of cleanliness. The 2 attacked the food while I found 2 mugs, cleaned them, materialized a canteen, and filled them. The pair watched my performance carefully, mumbling how good the food was. With her mouth full, Flora asked, I thought you were a legionnaire. Are you a mage then? No, I just know a trick or 2. I placed 5 more apples in front of them to make 6. You can take these with you to eat when hunger grabs you. Are you the Chancellor's husband? Apparently, once Flora became uncomfortable with someone, she was no longer shy and spoke unfiltered. She had also somehow emptied her plate. I don't know how she managed to get it all down so quickly, or how it fit inside her thin frame. She would have challenged Maviet with her speed of consumption. I wasn't abashed. No, I'm just her bodyguard. The 2 looked at each other knowingly, clearly drawing the wrong conclusion. I shrugged internally and produced another apple, and took a bite. The dungeon apple was sweet, crunchy and savory. Good thing I had hundreds, but I had hoped to share the harvest with Ginger. So, what are your affinities? Have you learned any spell forms? I asked, quickly finishing off the sweet dungeon apple. The 2 looked at each other, deciding who would speak. Livia spoke first. My primary affinity is healing at 43. Ooh. I can heal flesh and bones that are already set. I'm working on my secondary spell form in the water affinity. It is to pull water out of thin air. If I cannot learn to cast spells in the next year, I will be assigned to the army as a medicus. That is amazing! Healers are the most valuable members of an army. My praise for her ability had her beaming. Flora looked at her plate sadly. My spell form is not impressive. I can grow a plant rapidly with ether. I'm hoping my next spell form is Discern Truth, so I can become a truth seeker. I reassured the young mage. Don't discount your spell form. That is impressive as well. With food troubles in the Empire, you can grow a fruit tree in a day to feed multiple people. It takes me 3 days to invest enough ether to grow a fruit tree to bear fruit, but it also ruins the soil, and the tree soon dies, she said, deflated. Oh, well. It probably uses up the nutrients in the soil. I'm guessing the tree just needs to be transplanted in fresher soil. Try it with smaller plants, I encouraged her. I was surprised her instructions instructors had not told her the same thing. Why is my room not cleaned? An angry call from the master bedroom rang in the apartments. High Mage Cinna had returned and was not happy. She came storming into the kitchen, and the color drained out of the faces of the two young mages. Flora bent over and quickly vomited as Cinna came into the kitchen, her eyes literally aflame and her red hair in a mess. I calmly turned to Cinna. I told them to clean the bathrooms first. The fire mage calmed, and I told them to clean the bathrooms first. The fire mage calmed, and she studied me. Had I read her wrong? Was Cinna not a reasonable woman? Go, she said harshly to the two mage aspirants. Flora and Livia scrambled to their feet, torn on whether they should clean up the vomit or not. Take the apples and don't forget your robes, I stated loudly as they hastily gathered the apples and ran to get their robes in the bath. When the door to the stairs closed with a thud, I looked to Cinna for an explanation. Her question, why did they remove their robes, caught me off guard, but her tone was conversational. Oh, okay. I flushed involuntarily and replied calmly. They didn't want to get them dirty. Did you know the other mages have mercilessly harassed those two? Of course. I gathered them from the discipline hall. They were peasants. I assumed whatever they were accused of was not their fault. My face hardened to anger, and Cinna waved for me to relax. Eric, they need to be able to adapt to their new life in the Empire. They either needed to gain enough power not to be targeted, or the Empire will shoot them up. It may seem unkind, but it was worked for hundreds of years. I was once in the same position as they are now. So, trial by fire, I responded a little tersely. Is that why you were so abrasive around them? Abrasive? She cocked an eyebrow. Ah, I see your confusion. As the Chancellor of the War College, I needed to demonstrate a certain persona. Being a bitch. Oh my god, he called her a bitch! What? Okay. Hello, Kevin. I didn't see you, sorry. I love the loot storage theme from A Soldier's Life. Just having barrels and barrels of apples you pick to just chew on for a long time after. Right? It's so fucking convenient, as we have seen in the book as well. Like, his ability is way better than you would first think, I guess. Like, it's awesome. Especially that nothing goes back, like that time is standing still in the storage. Very, very good. Being a bitch. I spat and immediately wanted to take it back. I had seen Cinna cook a hill giant alive with a dragon she conjured from fire. Bitch. She searched for meaning in the word. Is that an otherworldly term? Be careful using them, but I understand the underlying meaning. And yes, I am a bitch. They call me the Flame Demoness, and every student at Mage College knows it and fears the rumors they hear about me. I didn't know what to say, so Cinna continued. Your job is to support my image. We haven't had time to discuss it, but the Emperor trusted me and appointed me to this position because he knows I will do whatever I need to do to get the job done. We need mages for the war. We cannot coddle the mage aspirants. I understand, I stated, even though I disagreed with everything. Good. The armor smith will be available tomorrow to fit you. I'm going to stay at Antonia's villa tonight. You can expect more mage aspirants coming to clean as punishment tomorrow. Make sure my room is cleaned first. Cinna went to the frying pan, pulled a soggy purple chip and chewed on it. Her face slowly lit up. This is good. Is it from the dungeon? Yes, I replied as I started strapping my armor on. You don't need to follow me this evening. Stay and settle into a room. We can talk tomorrow after your armor finished with you. She ate another soggy potato. You shouldn't waste this on mage aspirants. It is saturated with ether and can help you recover your own ether more quickly. What, really? Well, we didn't know that. My eyes widened at that. She took the last piece, savoring it, and swallowed before leaving. I was left alone again. I decided to set myself in one of the small rooms of the kitchen rather than one of the larger guest rooms. It was partly because there would be a lot less to clean, and also it was more defensible. I cleaned for a few hours and then took a cold shower. The two mages had done an admirable job in the bath and toilets, more than earning their dinner. I felt sorry that Flora had given hers back. She needed the sustenance. Does anyone... should we... So the vomit is just gonna stay there until tomorrow when another mage aspirant has to come and clean up another mage aspirant's vomit? I guess, right? No? I made my bed using the weasel pelts and pulled out my griffin down pillow to rest my head and enjoy the fresh outdoor scent. I secured the small window and door, planning to use the Dreamscape amulet to determine the functions of the two summoner rings. Before using the amulet, I consumed a major earth essence, revealing in the earthy taste and feeling a brief connection to the stone that made up the tower momentarily. Certain I was secure, I pulled out the elven tablet reader table. It was time to see my gains. His gains. Hey! Chapter 187, Reunion with Rena. I liked the room I selected. It had a long bed with aged, worn dark wood and two antique-looking armories for clothes. This small bedroom of the kitchen also had a modest window with a 30-foot drop to the outer wall of the courtyard. Although it wouldn't be pleasant, I could use it as an exit and heal the damage from the fall to make an escape if needed. The assessment tablet. The assessment table was calling to me, and it filled out the room as a work desk. I wanted to see my gains and how close I was to learning a spell form for the Earth Affinity. I gripped the edges of the Elven Craft assessment table and channeled my Ether. The constant burn from maintaining my slow aging intensified with added Ether expenditure. I was already getting used to it and didn't even wince. I was now quite sure the inscriber had lied to us. The metallic runes on my bones pulsed enough that I could focus on them and sense their presence. I believe the runes didn't draw Ether, but my Ether was constantly cycling through them, ready to counter a Truth Seeker spell. It was what it was, and maybe I had agreed too quickly to the procedure. I sighed as there was no going back now. I first focused on the right side to read my new magic affinities. Okay. Elemental magics. Common. Earth 13. Lightning 8. Why lightning 8? Like, this is useless. Spirit healing 23. And then protection guardian 30. Charm 5 and illusion 3. Also worthless. Better than lightning though. Fine. Hello, Lethathios. Welcome. Mage aspirant character development. To clean vomit? No, Rena. Oh, more. Okay. Space 98, of course. Time 90. Displacement 61. Materialism 9. Worthless. Worlds 88. Void 22. Convergence 74. My Earth Affinity had reached 13. High enough to learn an Earth Affinity spell form. So it was time to review the spell forms and decide. Congratulations, Ghost, on getting first. Welcome. I thought I could reach over 30 after consuming my remaining Earth essences. Should I concentrate on boosting my affinity by acquiring more essences before mastering my one spell form? I would review my options in the Dreamscape tonight, but from what I knew, magic affinity essences were rare. I may regret not getting more essences from the Shimmering Labyrinth one day. Before joining the Hound's training, I hoped I had time to consume all the essences I had collected in the Shimmering Labyrinth. I glanced at my attributes and saw that my progress was significant. Strength 1, Power 1, Dexterity 2, Endurance 1, Reasoning 1, Resilience 2, Ether Pool, Max +4 and then +5. Channeling -6 and -1 max. That's tough. Ether Tolerance +7 and the Resistance +4. Constitution +2, Empathy +5, Fortitude +3. Time space. I immediately focused on the 4 additional potential points in my Ether pool. My Ether attribute had also increased by 5 points. The Summoner's Essence had been extremely lucrative. An odd thought occurred to me. The magic affinity essences only seemed to affect my Ether core and Ether channels. Could I then take a physical attribute essence at the same time as consuming an affinity one? I turned the idea over in my head. Would the 2 enchantments clash, or would they have 2 completely different pathways? I decided to risk asking Cinna when I saw her next. I wanted to reveal as little as possible about my spell forms and essence stockpile as possible. I settled into the weasel palace and inhaled the fresh outdoor scent of the griffin pillow. The amulet appeared in my hand, and I retreated to the dreamscape. I'm also appearing to go into the dreamscape. I had almost lost their precious training artifact. For now, I would maintain the secret chamber in the Scorpion Room, but banished my copy of The Hobbit, the only item from Earth besides Oscar. Oscar was not going anywhere. Hell yeah. I forgot that he made a copy of The Hobbit. He did that like very early. That was the first one he did, no? I think. Just to see if he could. If I erased everything, I would have to recreate it and deal with the mental fatigue when creating it again. Castile and Maeve had created some things here, but I could not reproduce them if I removed them, so they were also staying. On dropping the false wall, my cohort became active in seeing me. Looks like you're getting soft, Eric, Constantine immediately accused me. Grab one of your fancy new weapons and let's practice. Oscar interposed himself and barked at Constantine, protecting me from the veteran, or maybe claiming my time as his. Looks like my dance card is full, I said while materializing a ball to play with Aussie. I like to dance. Serana stepped forward after a few tosses of the ball. Jokingly, and to spite Constantine, I took her hand, and the Goliath woman took the lead to educate me on an unfamiliar dance. I was flustered as she kept correcting me. I was confused because I didn't know this dance and had never seen anyone dance this way. Realization came to me. Mavieth had created this instance of a sister, so her knowledge was that of Mavieth, not mine. It presented an interesting possibility of having people create constructs in the dreamscape that could then teach me. Sparring opponents would be much more effective since the current manifestations only drew from my own memory and observations. Could I get a mage instructor in my dreamscape this way? Maybe Cinna? Or was the risk too great? After a very short dance lesson, I did what I came for and grabbed the books to figure out what the summoner's rings did. I stood in the center of the massive 10-foot recreated ring and highlighted the runic script with a thought. Oscar jumped over the ring to join me in the center whilst I worked. It didn't take me long to puzzle it out. The runic script was simple, even though the ring was powerful. As best as I could understand, the ring enhanced ether channeling by 10 relative points on a tablet, effectively doubling my ability to recover my ether pool. Thank you so much, Latios, for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you. The exercises Castile had taught me only enhanced my ether recovery slightly, and only when I focused on processing ether from the environment. I was sure mages would kill for this ring. The second ring was also extremely useful, and the runes were familiar. It was another ring of sustenance. Oh, I could see why the summoner had grown so powerful. He needed less sleep and recovered ether so quickly. That coupled with his elven longevity had given him all the time in the world. I pulled down the Earth spell form book from the shelf and reviewed the index. Earth Affinity Lesser Spell Forms. Shapestone 10, Imbue Glowstone 10, Shatter 25. Earth Affinity Major Spell Forms. Earth Speak 25, Earth Glide 25, Stone Skin 25. Earth Affinity Apex Spell Forms. Manipulate Earth 50. That's the one maybe it has, no? Earthquake 70. Quicksand Liquefy Earth 70. Earthquake. Constantine interrupted me, irritated and spat. You have us all in here at your disposal, and you come here to read. Oscar barked, supporting his assessment. Without me on your back all the time, you're going to lounge about in the real world as well as in here. He sounded disgusted with me, and I realized this was my subconscious way of talking through the veteran. At least, that was my reasoning for his belligerence. I promise I will train with you and stay sharp outside this realm too, even though I have consumed enough essences to maintain my physical attributes without training. I was essentially making the promise to myself, but Constantine tossed a black-tipped spear at me, thinking we would get started right away. I wondered if talking to myself in the dreamscape was the beginning of some type of insanity. I would say so. I decided to review the spell forms in the dreamscape tomorrow night. I tested the spear with a spin, and then spent my remaining time in the dreamscape practicing with it. It was the most powerful runic weapon I had. The Mage Bane could be more useful against mage opponents, but this spear had delivered the strongest attack against the specters. Xavier and Constantine took turns attacking me, with sword and shield, while I wielded the spear two-handedly. Then we practiced with the spear in my left hand and a shield in my right. The thick shaft made it somewhat difficult to wield with a shield, but I managed. To wield with a shield. I woke early after roughly 6 hours in the dreamscape. I decided not to wear the channeling ring. Being in a mage college, I was worried someone would recognize it for what it was and cause me problems. The amulet had caused me enough complications and forced me into my current circumstances. I took some time to dirty up the ring of sustenance to conceal its luster, identifying it as an artifact. I thought about storing the assessment table, but hesitated. Could I really trust Cinna? I definitely liked the mage, and she had been very friendly to me in our interactions, even though she's a bitch. I wrestled with my thoughts, went with my intuition, and ultimately decided to test Cinna. I left the assessment table out, but covered it with the weasel pelts. It was early, hours before sunrise. I went through some stretching and weighed down my black blade, tightly wrapping it with large silver dungeon coins. Okay. Then I went through the sword forms I had learned in Legion training until my muscles burned. Focusing on perfect movements, I worked up a good lather by sunrise. There was still no Cinna or armorer, so I started cleaning the suite. I started with the kitchen, as I had only cleaned the sink and a small workspace yesterday. I was almost done with the first cleaning pass when a knock at the door made me pause to answer it. Opening the door, I found the 2 mage aspirants from yesterday, and a red-haired woman with a furious countenance dressed in grey robes. I don't think Renna recognized me, because she stormed angrily past me, not giving me a second glance. Oh. Livia and Flora looked meek, following their irate Renna more slowly. What happened this time? I asked. What happened this time? I asked, arching an eyebrow at the 2 young women. Hello, Bruno. First time catching you live. Let's go. Congratulations. I usually don't stream at this time, but maybe more frequently nowadays I will. Maybe. It's a bit up and down since I got the puppy that you can see here. She has taken all my time. So, but I'm happy that I managed to stream during a time when you could join. 8 a.m. here. Oof, it's 13, so 1 p.m. over here in Germany. Livia answered for the pair as Renna was already cursing further in the suite at seeing all the dust. We couldn't answer the questions from the readings, but it wasn't our fault, as mage aspirants Daniela and Petra took our books weeks ago. If we don't have time to get to the library to use books there, we can't do the readings, and we were here all evening yesterday. She was morose, but quickly added, "Thank you for the last night's incredible meal. We don't regret cleaning at all." Renna had circled the entire suite and returned. "Servant, where is High Mage Cinna?" Her angry tone told me she was familiar with the High Mage, and that she was planning to give her some serious lip. "Well, it is good to see you too," I stated with a half-smile. I didn't have my armor on, and I was covered in filth. I hoped that Renna just hadn't recognized me yet. She studied me for a long time, her eyes widening as recognition finally dawned. "Eric, you got kicked out of the Legion. How? You were a porter. Even if you fucked one of the Emperor's wives, they would have still sent you to die in a battle rather than demote you to a servant. I feel like Renna has changed. What the fuck? Damn, Renna. Okay. I'm here for it." This was not the small town, self-conscious young woman I remembered from the Griffin and Bullet hunt, right? A few short months had transformed her and given her confidence. "Chancellor Cinna needed someone to practice her spells on," I said merrily, indicating my filthy state. The 2 young aspirants looked shocked, and I figured it couldn't hurt to spread more rumors to help out the Chancellor's image that she abused her bodyguard. Renna's face twisted in confusion before some shock as she drew her own conclusions. Are you why she sent me here to clean for failing a second-year exam when I have less than half a year at the college? I thought you might want to see your old friend. Cinna's harsh voice came from the archway to her bedroom. How she got there without coming up the stairs was a mystery. You mentioned him a few times when you stayed with me to learn your spell form for fire. Rena slowly blushed a bright red, her freckles blending away. I did, but not that way. Cinna's mischievous smile told me she had tried to embarrass Rena, and it worked. Flora and Olivia were turning between the two of us, surprised we also knew each other, and drawing their own conclusion as well. Oh, poor kids. I wanted to learn more about what Rena had told Cinna about me, but Cinna continued imperiously. I need my private residence cleaned top to bottom. I will ensure you come up here after your afternoon. I will ensure you come up here after your afternoon class every day. Once my suite is clean to my satisfaction, I will start giving you private lessons. She was addressing Rena, and I looked at the two meek commoner mage aspirants. The mage aspirants too? I asked for them as they were dumbstruck by the informality of the conversation. Cinna sighed and said reluctantly, Yes, that pair as well. And thank you for giving me the idea of using you as a live target for my fire magic class, Eric. Keep your old armor, and you can wear it to the class when I need to demonstrate offensive magic. My jaw turned to unhinge, causing Cinna to smile. You can heal yourself, correct? I nodded dumbly, not sure if she was serious. Good. Now you need to go meet the Master Armor Smith next to the Imperial Legion barracks. She produced a sealed scroll and handed it to me. Damn. I will just go clean up, I said, moving toward the bath. No, Cinna smiled mirthfully. I think the students should see how I treat my bodyguard. You look like I just mopped the floor with you. I slowly nodded and shrugged internally. I didn't care how the students perceived me. As I descended the stairs, I could hear Cinna giving sharp orders to the three mages, having all three start in her bedroom so she could spend the night comfortably. I figured I could find my own way to the Imperial Armor, with a scroll in my hand apparently giving me passage there. Damn. Cinna. Cinna indeed a bitch. But Rena is here. Chapter 188. Getting Fitted. I fuck with Cinna though, I like her. Descending the stairs to the lower floors of the War College Tower, I got a lot of stares from my filthy state. I ignored them and almost turned around for my sword to belt it, but then I would have to spend time unwrapping the weights I meticulously added to it. I planned to use it every day, and rewrapping it would waste time. I had my Legion short sword that I secretly pulled from my space and strapped on. Each floor of the massive conical tower housed classrooms, small libraries, offices, and rooms for practicing spellcraft. 1 in 4 had a class being conducted. I reached the ground floor and entered the courtyard, following the paths toward the gate for the Imperial Palace grounds. The 4 legionnaires in polished red lacquered armor looked me over dubiously. The oldest of the group, with a well-trimmed silver beard and an age-lined face, moved to stop me. I held up the scroll with the seal. I have business with the Imperial Legion armorers. His eyes traveled over me, assessing me, and his distaste was evident on his face. He took the scroll, his face twisting further as he broke the seal and read it. His jaw tightened as he looked at me. Me again. Is this how the Chancellor's Legionnaire presents himself in public? Yep, I said curtly, holding out my hand for the scroll to be returned. Can you direct me to where I need to go? He shook his head in disapproval, slapped the scroll into my hand, and addressed the youngest looking of the legionnaires. Artorius. Escort this legionnaire to the Smiths. Dude, that's a fucking crazy name. Artorius. Insane. Artorius snapped his gauntlet to his chest in salute, spun, and began walking. Of course Artorius did that. He didn't wait to see if I followed. I guessed he was embarrassed to be seen with me by his haste. I had been inside the palace grounds before, so I was not surprised by the opulence of the manicured paths, gardens, and outbuildings. We kept the wall to the right as we moved toward an impressive white stone building along the wall of the expansive grounds. Roman columns decorated outside with impressive 15-foot statues of legionnaires between them. Who are they? Who are they? I asked as we passed through a wide entrance flanked by 2 Imperial Legionnaires. The Legionnaires gave me a sour look but answered. Legion heroes, most from the time of the First Legion. I wanted to go back and inspect them as the detail on the statues had been amazing. Instead, I followed the impatient man through the echoing halls. Polished white, black, and blue marble was everywhere, and this seemed more like a palace than a functional military structure. Imperial Legionnaires walked the wide, high-ceilinged corridors with purpose in their step. Some gave me curious looks as their steps echoed past. Others ignored me completely, assuming by my escort that I had a right to be here. We exited out the back of the Legion Hall into a training yard with a handful of Legionnaires sparring. I slowed my step to study them, ignoring my escort's impatience. These Legionnaires were good, maybe as good as Xavier with a sword. I tried to focus on their technique and form to add it to my dreamscape. Artorius waited, his expression souring as I wasn't moving, and returned to stand beside me. Of the 20 men practicing, 18 wielded swords and 2 spears. The peak of movement efficiency was on full display, and I particularly focused on the footwork, as that was my greatest shortcoming. Only the best are quartered in the Imperial Legion Hall. I doubt you could match a single Legionnaire here, he said condescendingly. I almost rebuked his claim, but kept my tongue. As long as I had my air shield, I was confident I could be best almost anyone here, as long as they didn't have their own spell form to enhance their combat. There was a single-story grey brick building, with the sounds of metal being pounded on the floor. With the sounds of metal being pounded on the far side of the training grounds. It isn't here, Artorius waved at the building, seeing I was unlikely to move. He spun around to return to his post. His disdain for me was evident. I could only guess it was because I was disgracing the Legion by my appearance. I watched the combat for another 10 minutes before I entered the building and got hit with a wave of dry heat that made me blink my eyes rapidly to keep them moist. Moist is such a disgusting word. When my eyes adjusted, I found a wide, long room with 3 workstation alcoves on each side. Each workstation had 3 large curved anvils of varying sizes and racks of hammers and tongs behind them. Red-hot furnaces that reminded me of pizza ovens were at each station. I assumed they were heated by thermal stones as there were no fumes or coals. 5 of the smiths continued to work, hammering on plates, while the nearest one stopped and approached. "What do you need?" His dry voice asked in an unfamiliar accent. I held out my scroll, and his broad shoulders rolled to loosen up before he took it. He had earned thick, veined forearms from his years as a smith. While he was reading, I noticed his oven furnace was the only one absent a red-hot glow. He grunted as he read, then handed me the scroll. Ignis is at her on... Oh my god. Ignis is at her end on her right. He then returned to his work, folding a plate over the curve of the anvil and smoothing it with his hands. I guessed he must have had a metal-shaping spell form. It was fascinating to watch, as he quickly made a pauldron plate and took out what appeared to be a blank to compare it to before shaping the metal a little more to finish. He looked up, seeing I was watching him. I nodded appreciatively at his skill and left him to work and strode down the length of the building. I opened the scroll and read it as I walked. It was a request from Chancellor High Mage Cinna to equip her personal Legionnaire guard with a suit of ceremonial Legion armor with a single enchantment to guard against rust. Ooh, that's nice. The rust enchantment. I reached the workstation to find Ignis, an old woman with grey hair, but built like a lumberjack. She was unhappy to be interrupted, so I handed her the scroll wordlessly. She took it despondently, read it, and smirked. Heard the old fire witch got herself a shield and sword arm. Follow me. I don't think I can meet her request to finish it in 4 days, but I owe her a favor. Maybe 6 days. The old woman moved through a side door, and I noticed she was working on 3 separate sets of Legion armor. All of the cuirasses had slight feminine curves. I knew there were female Legionnaires, but they were rare, and I could only recall seeing a few from a distance. I hurried after Ignis, and the cool air beyond the door caused goosebumps to form as my sweat vanished. The room was familiar to me, with 6 mannequins inside for fitting armor. The quality and condition of the mannequins far outstripped the ones used in the conscript Legion training camp. Ignis was standing by one, waiting for me. How many women legionnaires are there? I asked, remembering the one I trained with. I wondered if Helena had completed the training and now served somewhere. Maybe 100 in the entire Imperial Legion, and half that elsewhere. Strip. Ignis ordered and folded her arms across her chest, waiting. In that pose, with bulging biceps, square shoulders, and a thick neck, she looked more like a squat bodybuilder than an impatient old woman. I removed my clothes, leaving just my underclothes, and she assessed my body with her trained eye. Her curiosity caused her to inquire. Not many scars. Are you fresh, or did you come from a company with a healing mage? Instead of answering her question, I asked my own. How long have you known Cinna? The woman paused in her preparation of the mannequin to match my physique. Be careful with your familiarity with the Fire Witch when talking with others. Even if you are sticking her in private, it is best always to use her titles elsewhere. My mouth hung open for a moment. Ignis was hypocritical in her own familiarity with Cinna, and now she thought Cinna had taken me on as a boy toy. She locked eyes on me to ensure I understood, and I nodded, not correcting her assumption. But, okay. Ignis continued. And to your question, I have known her longer than you have been alive. She got me this position when she found me working at a forge in a small village. After 30 years, I still don't know if I should thank her or curse her. She chuckled to herself at some private joke. After setting the mannequin to roughly match my physique, she moved in on me with a tape and stick. I need you to flex in various poses. An individual's muscles can have some variance, and I want to make sure you have a good range of motion in your armor when you swing your stick around. I twirled the stick she had given me. The stick could be used as a spear or sword, and I went through the sword forms with Ignis stopping me in poses, asking me to flex and taking a quick measurement with her tape. Enough, she said after an hour. You are a big boy, but I will give the armor some play for growth. Just don't get lazy and drink yourself a belly. How big is your sword? She asked in apparent seriousness. I thought about a multitude of responses for the armor, but instead just used the stick to mark the blade length and width from memory. How much will this armor add to my depth? I asked after I finished dressing in my filthy clothes. Nothing. The cost of the armor will be credited to the Chancellor's account. However you decide to pay her back is up to you. Each Chancellor is allotted 4 personal legionnaires paid for by the Emperor. Normally, the Emperor will handpick legionnaires for his personal guard. High Mage Cinna just resumed her role as Chancellor, but has not had a legionnaire in her service in years. Ignis finished taking notes and preparing to return to work at her forge. Do you have any gloves? I inquired, stopping her. She turned slowly. Only tough beast hide gloves or giant spider silk would hold up for any period of time. If the Chancellor approves it, I can charge it to her account, the armorer said patiently. I considered and thought the Imperial Legion Hall might have someone who could use the spinnerets I got in the dungeon. I considered a moment before I produced one of the spinnerets and asked, Can gloves be made from this? The old smith had a surprised look. Dimensional space. I didn't even need to nod before she said, Now it makes sense why she chose such a young and unexperienced legionnaire. I was surprised this armorer was making so many assumptions about me, but then again, I looked like I had just mopped the floor. She turned it over in her hand appreciatively. Yes, a mage tailor can get your gloves from this. It appears fresh. Do you know the species? I recalled what Castile had called it. Dungeon black repelling spider. The armor smith looked surprised. Just as good as drake hide and much more comfortable as the mage tailor will create them without seams. If you don't mind giving up the excess, I can convince the Imperial Mage Weaver to make you gloves. How much excess would there be? I asked before accepting. 1 spinneret this size is good for a single shirt or 3 layered gloves. But I am no mage tailor, and I'm guessing how far one can stretch 1 spinneret. The old smith said, studying the spongy spinneret like it was a jewel. Spider silk is prized for making excellent underclothes as well. The comfort can't be matched. Her eyes drifted below my waist, indicating what she meant. 2 long-sleeved shirts, 2 pairs of gloves, I said, placing the other 4 spinnerets on the table. Black, if possible, for everything. The extra material will hopefully pay for the mage's time. I replied after considering. Also, I would prefer the origin of the spinnerets remain secret. Ignis was shaking her head, full of surprises. I know these must be used quickly after harvesting, or the strands bind together. I have some clay for impressions of the back and front of your hands. Ignis moved quickly, and after my imprints were made, the soft clay was baked to harden, and Ignis headed off to deliver the spinnerets. I was happily cleaning out my dimensional storage in exchange for more useful items. Hopefully, I wasn't evading some Imperial dungeon tax, and Ignis could be trusted. I began my walk back to the Mage College. An Imperial Legionnaire escorted me from the palace grounds. At least he wasn't as spiteful as Artorias. I climbed the tower on returning. I had been gone 2 hours and found a filthy Renna scrubbing the floors on her hands and knees next to a bucket of black water. She looked filthier than me. Well, at least your robes are already grey, I joked on seeing her sorry state. A spell form flashed in her left hand over a few seconds, and a small fireball formed. It raced toward me and exploded in a small pop of light as heat washed over my legs. Her grin at her display faded when I had made no attempt to move. The air shield I had erected was not visible to her, and the only effect I felt was hot air washing over my legs. I guess the mages flirted differently. At least, I was assuming she was flirting by her mischievous grin, or maybe she was trying to impress me with her magic. You were different, Eric. More confident, battle-hardened, Renna said seriously after the disappointment at my lack of surprise left her. I brushed off her comments, but it was true. I had faced death's embrace too many times and no longer feared it. Did the grey robes mean you are a mage now? I asked, cracking a smile while she stood with an obvious hunch from being on the floor for too long. She straightened her back and arched to stretch it. She let out a groan as her muscles stretched and then returned her attention to me. Well, that is Eric, if anything is flirting, that is. That is. I'm telling you. She smiled smugly at my wandering eyes. See? Yes, I have learned 2 spells. I earned my grace faster than anyone in the last 6 years. I will earn my whites and be recognized as a full mage before the end of my first year. That is why I have been assigned to the War College early. A muffled bell chimed in the distant courtyard of the Mage College. Flora and Livia came out of the bedroom, covered in filth and excited. Renna explained. Senna said we are free to go to dinner at the Bell, but we will be back tomorrow. She smiled as she backed toward the door, her bright white teeth showing through her filthy face. The 2 mage aspirants were already dashing down the stairs, eager for food. Hello, Cade. Willow Cam is a great addition. Thank you. As long as she's actually there, it's great. Right now, she has blessed us with her presence for the whole duration of the stream so far because she's so tired. Maybe we can get a full stream. She is. She's the most adorable little thing. And I get like so. She is so fucking spoiled as well because like majority of the people we see outside are like, oh my god, look at that. And so many people come up to her and be like, oh, she's so cute. Is that a husky? I'm like, no. But she is so cute. She's adorable. I love her. Couldn't have gotten a better dog. I shouldn't have been surprised that the weasel pelt I had draped over the elven assessment table was folded back, revealing it. A heavy book was on the exposed table. Was it Renna, the mage aspirants, or Cinna who had entered the room, violating my privacy? In truth, I had left the table out to see how much I could trust Cinna. She had gained a lot of points by returning the Dreamscape amulet, but had just lost them. I sighed helplessly and looked at the title of the book. Preparing Dungeon Flora and Fauna, a guide to getting the most out of your time in a dungeon. Well, thank you, Cinna, but it looks like we need to talk and hopefully set some boundaries. After a bath. Oh, hello? Cinna? What the fuck is this now? What the hell? What the fuck is happening? What is this book? Hello? No. Okay. Chapter 189. Flirting with Fire. I entered the bath to find Cinna lounging in the recessed tub, dense steam wafting off the surface. Only her shoulders were visible above the water through the haze, but hints of her generous chest peeked just under the surface, and we could tell. I wasn't bashful, and strangely, the first question that came to mind was, how did you heat the water? I hadn't seen a way to heat the water and was curious. I had planned to use my thermal stone. The High Mage laughed softly. Fire Mage, remember? I would ask you to join me, but the water is hot enough to boil a sausage. Oi! She said good-naturedly as her eyes wandered over me. I assumed she had some spell to protect her from the heat. I probably should have left and come back when she was finished, but since she didn't seem upset at my presence and there was no real taboo about nudity, I leaned against the wall to continue the banter. Thank you for the cookbook. I wondered if she would bring up the assessment table in our conversation. The mage smiled, her full lips turning up into a smirk. It is such a waste of dungeon resources to cook a dungeon's harvest for the mage aspirants. I also assumed you were ignorant of their true value, but since you stored your harvest in your dimensional space, she drifted off while smirking. So you expect me to cook for you too? I cocked an eyebrow. Is this some sort of payment for the armor? Cinna tittered cheerfully. If you wish. Ignis is the best armor in the Imperial Legion. It is a travesty that many legionnaires don't want their armor made by a graying old woman. I wondered if the old smith was part of their conspiracy. She said you found her 30 years ago. I asked as the steam settled, revealing the outline of her body beneath the water. I had to remind myself that Italians did not shy from exposing themselves, but it was hard not to have my eyes drift. Cinna seemed to like the attention. Oh my god. How old do you think I am? Cinna's smile evaporated, and I sensed a trap. 30? I guessed, immediately, to a hearty laugh from the fire mage that rippled the water. I recalled she had told us her true age when she joined us to hunt the summoner, but you always guessed much lower. I knew we would get along. No, I'm 84. When you do well for the Emperor, he grants you favors. The water heated again, and steam obscured her submerged features. I think she hoped I would be disappointed, but I remained indifferent. So, one of these favors is you remain forever young. Doesn't seem like a bad deal to me. I was confused as to why Cinna was part of the treason. She had been raised to a first citizen by the Emperor, and she had eternal youth bestowed on her by him. She signed heavily and considered her next words carefully. I may have the body of me in my prime, but the eternal High Mage can just turn the clock back on my physical form, not my mental state. Realization flooded me. The Emperor was 300 years old, mentally, and ruling an empire. Then I cursed myself, getting angry but not showing it. I had selected slow aging, hoping to live a dozen lifetimes. I fucked up choosing that spell form in my mind, was going to turn to mush with the passing centuries. I gathered my thoughts. So there is no way to mediate the degradation of your mind or the mind of the Emperor. How far gone is he? Surprise crossed her features, and I momentarily prepared to defend myself as I sensed in a channeling ether and a spell forming under the water. But she released her hold on the other. I don't think I was supposed to know about the Emperor or his compromised state. Yes, my mind is going. Maybe another 30 or 40 years before the deterioration starts to get bad. There is no cure. She looked me over in new appreciation. You understand. You are smarter than you look. The Emperor's mind has long expired. With some stamina potions and a few mental essences, he can remain lucid for a day or two before regressing again. But the effects diminish every time. If you voice this conversation beyond these walls, you will find yourself dead, she said ominously. Her eyes glowed red briefly to reinforce the warning. With her flirtatious nature gone, I discovered I was not as safe as I assumed. I considered broaching the topic of the tablet reader, but I had too many other questions. Why are you all not concerned that I am an otherworlder? She relaxed into the tub, the tension lifting some. Think you're special? She grinned knowingly. It is believed everyone on Dessia is descended from an otherworlder. Our ancestors were brought here by the Titans in the past to serve them. Their arrivals have slowed over the millennia, but are not infrequent. You need to realize the Telian Empire is just a tiny corner of Dessia. Bloated, naked bodies will wash up intermittently along the coast, and they are not from shipwrecks, but unfortunate people brought here in the middle of seas. She raised herself slowly, showing the top of her chest. She was no longer flirting and just getting comfortable. What causes it? And can I go home? I pushed off the wall and stepped forward, anxious about the possibility of going home. No one knows. The popular theory is there are artifacts buried deep in the earth near the ley lines by the Titans that get saturated with ether over time and activate intermittently. Cinna stood, stepping out of the bath, her body steaming. I tried to keep my eyes up, but they may have drifted. She defiantly looked half her age, and her body appeared fit. She wrapped herself in a toga, making to leave the bath to me. I asked one of many pressing questions. Can you consume an affinity essence and physical essence at the same time? The topic change had a confused expression creased on Cinna's face. She had probably thought I would continue asking about other worlders. As her expression relaxed, she answered. It is generally accepted to wait a day between consuming essences unless they are the same type. Then you can consume one an hour until you exhaust your body reserves. Her forehead creased in thought. I have a friend in the research college. He would know better than I. By her look, I could tell she had puzzled out that I had essences and maybe was curious about what I might have, but she didn't press. She started to walk out toward her bedroom. Drain the tub when you're finished. Should I call for a meal from the kitchens? Her hopeful tone told me she was seeking my dungeon harvest. I'll prepare something for you, I replied, agreeing to cook. I needed to be cautious about how often I did this, as I believed she was unaware of how much food I had in my dimensional space. Even though we were allies, the more they understated me, the better it was. I would have to thank Castile for laying the groundwork by suggesting I had average imprinted spell forms. They didn't realize just how high my affinities were. I was surprised they hadn't forced me in front of a reader. Maybe, as Cinna said, I was not that special in their eyes. I was just another person with a few spell forms, but without the ability to become a true mage. I showered briefly in cold water, soaked in the still hot recessed tub, and then dressed in comfortable clothes I bought in the capital before we marched for Sobral. The pantry was still empty, and I would eventually need more ingredients. While cleaning, I discovered a thermal stone embedded inside an oven and stovetop. At least I could leave my thermal stone in my space. Dinner was mashed purple potatoes with medium rare bear steaks. I brought Cinna a plate to the sitting room where she was reading and obviously waiting. She took the plate, cut off a chunk, and chewed. A throaty, sensual-sounding moan of pleasure echoed from her. So descriptive. She scooped the plain potatoes and repeated her pleasure. Oh my god. You have no idea how this tastes to a high mage, Eric. She had called me by my name, which was a good sign of our relationship, but paused to chew some more. It is like you never realize you were hungry until you actually start eating other rich food. It had been so long since I enjoyed something this fresh from a dungeon. I could do a better job preparing the food if I had a full pantry, I stated. Through mouthfuls, she answered. Write down what you need. You are not leaving the mage college to go into the city. As I said, it is for your own protection. I will have porters who receive the mage college get you what you need. Who serves, not who receives. What? She then ignored me while she ate, quickly devouring the meal and clearly surprised and disappointed when it was gone. Cinna reclined, her hands on her stomach as I had prepared a legion-sized portion. Can I walk the mage college grounds then? Not yet. After your imperial armor is finished and you have attended a few classes with me, I want the other instructors and students to know you are mine. That way they will not cause you trouble. Most of the students here are the children of the first citizens, or related to them. You can be sure you already have enemies within the walls, whether by your previous actions or by being my bodyguard. Cinna stood, ready to leave with the book she had been reading. So, I'm trapped in your apartment until then, I said, a little irritated. There had been half a dozen small libraries in this tower alone. Although I couldn't make use of the books, adding them to the amulet for future review would be useful. Cinna smirked knowingly, but was off target in her assumption. Don't worry, I will find a reason to punish Rena, Flora, and Livia to come here in the afternoons. Her expression and tone changed. Maybe she thought I was rejecting her in favor of Rena. Perhaps as a return courtesy, you will not waste too much of the dungeon harvest on them. It looked like she was done with me for the evening, but I had another nagging question that I needed answered for peace of mind. Will the tablet reader table be a problem? Her eyes lit up. The ancient elven reader in your room. An interesting piece of history from Kaelora. Did you know the First Legion artificers were the first to create the readers, and the other kingdoms and races copied them? Yes, someone told me that, I said cautiously, recalling what Aurelia told me in the dungeon. If you transport the table, it demonstrates you have an impressive size. Makes me question how big you actually are. My god. She smiled at my discomfort, but it was not because of her obvious innuendo. I was debating if I had misstepped in leaving the reader out. The moment of awkwardness hung. Castile spoke highly of you, and from our time together hunting the summoner, I agree with her assessment. Step lightly and watch your words around Antonia and her other agents. She will act if she considers you a threat to our plans. Cinna's tone seemed to reinforce that she would keep my secret, but she would not protect me if I revealed them to others in Cinna's circle. I nodded and agreed to prepare her meals. I left Cinna and spent the next 10 minutes writing out a shopping list. Cinna showed me how the larder had a heat sink stone artifact in it. It was the opposite of the thermal stone and pulled the heat out of the air. It kept the room at a freezing temperature as long as the heat sink was charged with ether every other day. Then Cinna went to meet with Castile to prepare her for some escort mission. I was left alone, with only a few hours of daylight remaining. I felt less uncertain about using the Dreamscape amulet now. Even being caged as I was, it was the safest I had been during my entire time in this world. Cinna's warning about Antonia made me doubt my importance to their plan. I was expendable, and it seemed like my involvement was merely a favor to Castile. It appeared their plan involved the Emperor and most likely included removing him from power. As long as I wasn't involved in confronting the Emperor, I would be content to play my role. I settled in my bed, sliding between the silky weasel pellets. With a glowstone, I studied the book on cooking with dungeon ingredients. It stated freshness was the most important factor. Since dungeons were so close to ley lines, the flora and fauna within were saturated with ether. The book touched on some common ingredients and how to prepare them. I paged through the book, stopping to read interesting chapters. When I finished the book, it had other books to reference in the back. All the books referenced preparing dungeon harvests. Most of the books dealt with alchemy ingredients found in dungeons. I knew the 2,000-year-old ginseng would eventually be extremely valuable. Tomorrow, I committed to cleaning the alchemy lab. I hope Cinna can get me some basic alchemy books to learn and practice the basics. My path forward set. I entered the dreamscape after securing the door from the inside. Chapter 190. New Routine. The entry room of the dreamscape hadn't changed. Rather than walking to the scorpion room, I willed myself there like a teleport. Being able to teleport would be a spell form I hoped to learn eventually. I needed to get my other attribute close to 40 before working on that spell form due to my other demands. Tonight, I plan to review the Earth Affinity spell forms in depth and start on the road to learning one. I held up my hand before Constantine could berate me. I will practice with you in a bit. I even have a small upgrade for you. I focused and incorporated what I observed in the Imperial Legion practice yard into Constantine and Xavier. Better teachers would make me better. I hopped into the plush leather chair. My voice is starting to die. In the shadows of a town, I've been waiting. What am I fucking trying to type here? There. So. I hopped into the plush leather chair, and Oscar joined me so I could rub his head while I studied. I glanced at the index before starting. We literally just read this. Yeah. The first entry was Shapestone, requiring a minimum of 10 in the Earth Affinity. It was the exact same ability that Maviat had. Oh fuck, he had Shape Stone. Oh, I said he had Manipulate Earth. But yeah, Shape Stone makes sense. Because I was like, damn, he had pretty high. Like, if he has an Apex spell form, but yeah. So I was like, really? Did he have that? But yeah. It makes sense. Fine, Shape Stone. The spell form channeled Ether to create an aura around the mage's hand, turning the stone into clay. The higher your affinity, the wider the area. The clay would return to stone about 60 seconds after the aura no longer affected it. This is what allowed for the masterful sculptures I had seen with different tones of stone, giving lifelike appearances. Maybe it used this to build its residence. The second option on the list was to imbue a glowstone. Glowstones were special stones mined in dungeons and could also be found above ground over a ley line nexus. Certain minerals would become saturated with ether and emit a soft glow. There was another way to artifice a light stone. This was accomplished by shearing a stone in half, inscribing the light rune, and putting the stone back together. Dungeon glowstones were natural, didn't require a rune to function, and could be broken apart into smaller glowstones. The brighter the emitted light, the higher the value. Artifice stones were generally more valuable because they were brighter but needed to be fed ether more often. This spell form circumnavigated the use of the runic inscription, making glowstones typically formed in dungeons. It could also affect any type of stone. The mage forced this spell form on a stone, which would glow for about 24 hours. The more ether, the brighter the light emitted. A side benefit of the spell was that a stone repeatedly used in this manner would eventually become a glowstone. If a single golf ball-sized glowstone sold for 1 gold, then this spell had a lot of possibilities for monetization. So far, both options were appealing to me. I moved on to the last of the suggested lesser options for the Earth Affinity. Shatter was at the upper range of low-tier affinities, requiring a 25 affinity. It would still be within my final range. Shatter magnified imperfections in stone to break it apart, but there was more. Wait, there is more! Over time, the mage could control where the shatter lines were, effectively making construction stones, or, as an example in the text, initiating a landslide or destroying walls. With a 50 affinity, the shatter spell form could also affect metal, but the spell form required touch, so you better be sure you could shatter a sword about to strike you. Oh, yeah. If you were wrong, then it would be a painful final attempt. Also, it noted the shatter spell form couldn't affect runic weapons or runic armor. These were all strong options, and I was hopeful for even better options moving on to the mid-tier spell forms. Earthspeak seemed amazing upon reading it. If you physically touched the ground, you could get an image of everything within the earth within a spherical range out to 5 yards. Oh, that's so cool. Things like birds in the air would not appear. Living objects like people and trees in contact with the ground would be blurry. It appears to be like a 3-dimensional radar. Finding underground passages would be easy, although you needed just 25 affinity points to imprint it. The higher your affinity, the better the range. At 35, the range doubled to 10 yards. It doubled again at 45, increasing to 20 yards. At 55 affinity, you could see out to 40 yards. This would be extremely valuable in dense woods or in a stone fortification if you were locating enemies. One note that made this extremely appealing was it functioned normally in dungeons. It would make scouting a dungeon room extremely easy. Not that I wanted to see the inside of a dungeon again anytime soon. The Earth Glide spell was a movement-focused spell form. It sounded like it would look amazing to see. The ground pulled the mage forward, using ether instead of the mage's legs and stamina. The speed was controllable, with the fastest speed determined by the Earth Affinity. At 30, the speed was noted as walking speed, doubling every 10 points of affinity. It cost 1 relative ether for every minute the spell form was activated. I started to calculate my relative ether pool. My ether pool attribute was 21 out of 26. My ether pool should be 34 then. The rough formula was 1 point up to 10, then 2 points from 11 to 20. It jumped to 4 points for each point from 21 to 30. That meant the 5 points of unrealized potential could add 20 more ether points to my pool, but right now I could maintain Earth Glide for 35 minutes. It was a good spell form, especially if I was running away. I just read, like, I was like, numbers, numbers. I don't understand. I could maintain Earth life for 34 minutes. Great, great, perfect. Perfect. The next spell form was one I was familiar with. Boris Angela used the stone skin spell form when we dueled. Yeah, right. The description was exactly as expected. The spell hardened the skin to prevent slashing attacks and spread the impact of bludgeoning attacks. The higher the affinity, the tougher the mage's stone skin spell form. There were even elemental protections with this spell form, but interestingly, the shatter spell could disrupt the stone skin spell and even damage organs. Ooh. Hello, Unknown Winter, yo! Welcome, welcome to the last chapter of the day. It was an expensive spell form to activate, costing around 5 relative ether. Its effectiveness slowly faded over a minute, but you could reset it by investing another 5 ether. But you needed to wait at least 12 heartbeats between activations. This knowledge would be useful if I were fighting someone else with the spell form. That was probably the last of the spell forms I would have had. Okay, break. That was probably the last of the spell forms I would have access to after consuming my essences. I wanted to get them all, as they all would grow with my affinity. Each one had its own situational utility. I would have worked to imprint Stone Skin if I knew I was going to remain in the Legion. The only downside of the spell form was to change your skin tone, alerting enemies you were using it and probably making you a target. I discounted the glowstone spell form since I had a few glowstones and didn't need revenue. Earthglide was also reluctantly crossed off my list. Shatter was crossed off next, even though it was tempting. I would have loved to fight First Citizen Boris again and use it on him. That left me deciding between Earthspeak and Shape Stone. I feel like he's gonna take Earthspeak. Building a dwelling like Maviet could be done. Building a dwelling like Maviet's could be done with my dimensional space. I could become a sculptor and make spectacular statues. Actually, probably not, as I didn't have a single artistic bone in my body. Earthspeak appeared to be my best option and would be useful when I joined the Hounds. The only negative was the short range of the spell at my lower affinity. Maybe before I completed the imprinting process, I would change my mind, but for now I would start working on Earthspeak. The remaining spell forms were also extremely powerful, but I didn't delve too deep into the descriptions. Move Earth was likely the spell the Storm Giant used when creating the crater in the swamp. Earthquake was the spell that Telian mages used to destroy the walls protecting Matcha. The last spell seemed useless, but Quicksand had a wider area of effect and could sink a wall or tower around a town or city in a siege. I reviewed the spell form for Earthspeak for just a few minutes before joining my Dreamscape population for some weapon practice. I switched between my best 3 runic weapons, the Magebane short sword, the longer black blade, and the black-tipped spear. Of the 3, I preferred the black-tipped spear. I was sure the powerful runic weapon had additional properties as well. Maybe I could sneak into the lower city and get the revelation scroll to use on it. I woke well before sunrise and continued my routine of pre-dawn physical training in the real world. Not long after the sunrise, a knock came at the door. I was shocked to find a massive delivery of meats, eggs, produce, cheeses, and casks of various ales, juices, and wines. Do you say cheeses for multiple cheese? I've never thought about that, but I don't feel like I've ever read cheeses, but it looks cute. Cheeses. It was 10 times what I had written down. Someone is hungry. 6 men carried it up the stairs and helped me put everything in the pantry and activated the heat sink in the cold room. What was Cinna thinking? This was enough food to feed 10 people for a month, and a lot of this would spoil in a week. Was she planning to make me her personal chef and host dinner parties? I knocked on Cinna's door, but she had already left, or maybe she had not even slept in the tower. I caught one of the porters as they finished the last run. Can you bring me some recipe books? His face twisted into annoyance. Will 20 large silvers be enough for 5 different cookbooks? That was 2 gold coins worth enough, and should have been more than sufficient. I was not a good cook, and would need some help if I was going to prepare decent meals for the Chancellor. The broad-shouldered, middle-aged porter considered. I will ask my wife to procure them for you. He took the silver reluctantly. Get a variety of cooking books, and you can keep the surplus. His demeanor instantly changed, surprise and delight in his eyes. Maybe he had thought I was asking him to do it for free. I had no shortage of large dungeon silver coins, but I would be more frugal in the future. I spent some time moving the ingredients around to organize the pantry, and then prepared an omelette with something like Parmesan cheese. Jesus. I crisped the Parmesan before cooking the eggs. The eggs were slightly overcooked and crispy too. I didn't need a lot of food with the ring. I didn't need a lot of food with the ring of sustenance, but I hope to cook better than this. Dude, sometimes you just get fucking lost in the sauce, dude. I was like, what am I reading? I'm just saying words. I wandered the suite and stopped in the alchemy lab. Cleaning this room was a massive project, as I guessed many of the flasks and beakers had been overcooked, and cleaning them would be next to impossible. Maybe I could convince him to get me some alchemy books. I attacked the alchemy lab, cleaning the easiest glassware first and moving to the increasingly difficult glassware. Senna walked in as I was trying to scrape material off the bottom of a beaker. She chuckled softly. You don't need to clean this room. I don't think it has been used in over 50 years. I never touched it in my last stint as the Chancellor. I don't have the patience for alchemy. I made my request with some hope. Could you get me some basic books on alchemy? If I'm going to be your tower slave, I need a hobby like Rapunzel. I quipped. Who is Rapunzel? Never mind, it doesn't matter. I thought you would want to feed the mage aspirants and Renna. They will be here an hour before dinner for their punishment. She looked over the partially clean laboratory. I will requisition books of the basics of alchemy for you. I never thought much of Imperial Alchemist's work after consuming a few dungeon potions. Once your armor arrives, you will attend my class with me in the morning, 6 days a week. Oh. I surmised with the massive food delivery. Cinna was hinting that I shouldn't cook any meals for the 3 with what was left on my dungeon harvest. Do you want lunch now? I asked. No. I have a meeting with Master Mage Janus. We're going to discuss essences, and I will get your answers. I do expect dinner an hour after sunset. I nodded and couldn't believe how quickly I had accepted my role. Yeah. Cinna left me alone in the tower again. I was planning out my daily routine. It started with 2 hours of studying in the dreamscape, and then weapon practice for 2 or 3 hours there as well. 5 hours in the dreamscape was more than enough sleep for me with the sustenance ring. I would work on my physical training until sunrise, then spend time in the alchemy lab cleaning glassware and trying my hand at the profession. I would direct Livia, Flora, and Renna while they cleaned, and I would prepare a large dinner for all of us. After they left, I would spend some time in my room paging through the metal smithing books to add them to my dreamscape. Then, I would begin the cycle again with the dreamscape amulet. A knock at the door had me find the 2 mage aspirants smiling at me. We got punished again by Chancellor Cinna, Flora said happily. I chuckled at her happiness of being punished. Come in. Masochistic kids. There is still plenty to clean, I said, but it only seemed to enhance her happiness. Oh my god. The 2 mages headed toward the nearest bedroom to start. Renna arrived shortly after, with a bright smile as well, and I started to prepare a feast for dinner. Now it feels like, I like this by the way, but now I'm scared because it feels like, oh, this will be the routine now, blah, 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 blah. So now it feels like there will be a time skip in the next chapter. Like, and so the days went on, like we just discussed, because this is the schedule and nothing else will happen. Now we're skipping further, and now we're in the hounds. Like, that he will skip too much now. Like, I don't want to skip, you know? So I'm scared that he might skip. It always feels like that when it's like, this will now be the routine. Blah, blah, blah. But maybe it's just like a few days. Maybe. Maybe something will happen. I mean, if nothing happens, there's nothing to show. But you understand what I mean. I don't want to leave. I'm not ready to leave the mage college yet. We just fucking got here. Yeah, I'm very interested about the hounds though. But like, we will join them later. Like, keep me here for a little bit. Just a little bit. Oh, yeah. My mind trailed off now just because Willow made a fucking noise. Okay. Yeah. So I hope that we won't get a big time skip and that we can stay in the Mage College for a while. But we will see next time. Yeah, hello, little puppy. It's like, how does she know? Like, you're done now. Please give me attention. Thanks. Thank you. Okay then. Well, I will grant my puppy's wish. And we shall end the stream for today. There you are. Okay. Yeah. Wawa time. Wow, I'm so fucking tired. Oh, thank you so much for joining this stream. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nice to see new faces. That happens when I stream at different times. I enjoy that. I enjoy that. Yeah. You're distracting me. You're distracting me. If you want more Willow, please go free. Please go free. Please feel free to go follow me on Instagram where I upload Willow pictures and videos. Ow, don't bite my hand. Oh, you freak. Otherwise, Small says everywhere. Blue Sky, YouTube, Twitch, you know. The places. And join the Discord server for updates when I'm gone and stuff like that. Important shit, you know? And talk with other people. Yeah. Okay. Most fucked outro in a while. I'm dying. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Hey, bye bye.